Lead core fishing line. What is it? What's it for? How do I use it? Welcome to the Brilliant Fishing Channel. I'm Jason Brilliant. This channel is all about documenting our fishing experiences, fishing education, and this year we're kicking off the Brilliant Fishing Podcast. But today, as promised, we're going to talk about lead core fishing line. What is this stuff? When do you use it? How do you use it? Why would you even want to use this stuff? Well, let's talk a little bit about what it is. Well, first of all, lead core fishing line is it's a nylon or a Dacron braided fishing line that has inside it a little piece of thin extruded lead wire, okay, which adds stiffness, but it also adds weight to this line. This line's fairly heavy. It's a little bit expensive as well. So that's what it is. You'll notice that when you buy lead core fishing line, it usually comes in a roll of 100 yards, 200 yards. And as you can see here, this is the one that I use most often. This is the Sufix 27-pound lead core line. It comes in a 100-yard roll, and it has 10 colored segments. So every 10 yards, or roughly 10 meters, this line changes color. So as I put it on my reel here, the first 10 yards or so are white, followed by 10 yards of purple, followed by 10 yards of green, 10 yards of black, and so forth and so on. So why is that all important? What am I going to use that for? Well, we're going to get to that, but first of all, let me talk about what this line is not for. Okay, this line is, as I've said, it's expensive, it's heavy, it kinks up really easily. This is not for a spinning reel. Do not want to put this on a spinning reel. This stuff does not cast. Not using this for a casting, retrieving type of fishing. You're using it for trolling. So with that said, you want to make sure you get you a good level wind reel with a large line capacity if you're going to use lead core line. So now I've got an older Okuma level wind reel here. I've linked some of these in my description down below. Something a little larger. I tend to not go with the more expensive reels for trolling. I like the Okuma Classic Pros, that kind of thing. Something that you can put a large line capacity on, because this stuff takes up a lot of room. It's pretty bulky. So you get your nylon or Dacron line. You've got the lead core extrusion that's inside that gives it its weight. You're using this trolling. In the South, we use this for trolling for hybrids and for stripers and a lot of our southern lakes and reservoirs. Now, some of you up north, I see guys on the Great Lakes and places, you're using this stuff to troll for salmon and for lake trout, for walleye and other sorts of fish like that you can find in the Great Lakes. So what is this stuff good for? Well, it's good for depth control while you're trolling. So trolling is when you're going to put this stuff to use. So each of these line colors that you let out, so you attach, and we'll talk about knots in a minute, but you attach your leader to this, mono or fluoro, you got your terminal tackle, and then you let that out into the water, and you feed this out. And if you feed out all of this first color right here, let's just say I feed out all of this white right here, okay, what that's going to give me is about 3 to 5 feet of depth if I'm trolling, say around 2 miles per hour. Okay, if I see my fish on my graph and I see these fish are 20 feet deep and I want to present my baits at like 15 feet deep, so I'm just going to keep letting out colors. I'm going to let out my first color, that's going to get me 4 feet deep. I'm going to let out my second color, gets me about 8 feet deep. I'm going to let out my third color, okay, that's going to get me to about 12, and then let out another color, it's going to get me down to around 16. So I just play around with how many colors I let out into the water, and this lead extrusion that is in that line, it's a big long skinny piece. Just think of it as like having a big long skinny sinker in your line, and so it's contained in there. So let out your colors. You're going to get about 3 to 5 feet of depth per color, and there's a lot of variables in there. So what I would recommend that you do is practice when you're on the water. Just go out and spend some time, figure out your boat, your rig, your setup, your terminal tackle. All those factors are going to play a role, but roughly, it's going to be 3 to 5 feet per color. So I've got a chart here that I created, and this is just a chart that helped me as I was trying to remember and to graph the depths out. So I know that, if I'm trolling, 2.1 to 2.5, which you can see that on the chart here, that's typically the speed that I'm going. That's about the kind of depth that I'm going to get using 27-pound Sufix lead core line, using what I normally would tie on the end. So normally I've got a 20-foot mono leader. I don't think fluoro makes a difference. I like mono. I'm using 18 to 20 feet of this as a leader. And then I'm either tying on a double bucktail rig, like a high-low bucktail rig, or I'm tying on a high-low, jig heads with swim baits, or sometimes I'm tying on an A rig. Of course, that's going to sink a little deeper, but you just add up all the weights that are on your A rig, and it's going to sink it a little deeper probably because you got a couple ounces of weight there. So play around with it, see how deep that's going to get you. All right, a couple of things. When I'm trolling this stuff, one of the things I think is just good practice is do not stop. Okay, don't stop moving. When these lines get hung up, okay, and you stop, they're going to sink. They're going to sink fast. You're going to hang up every line you got. So what I like to do is you get these baits in the water. You're already moving. Okay, you put your lead core out. You keep moving. Okay, you do not stop. Okay, now if you get a snag, you tighten that drag down, grab a hold of it, you yank it, you pull it, you break it. It just is what it is. You're going to lose some stuff, but you keep moving. And then now something I did learn. Now, if you see like on your graph that you're going over a tree and you see that tree is coming up where you might get a snag, best thing you can do is hit your throttle and speed up. If you add an extra mile per hour to your trolling, those things are going to ride up higher. And a lot of times you can skim over top of it, and then once you've gone a safe distance, pull your throttle back down. But you don't want to stop because you're going to hang everything up. Speaking of hang-ups, a couple of things that can help you out here, and I've learned this one the hard way. If you've got, let's say this is 27-pound lead core, you want your leader to be a breaking strength less than that. So that way you break off your leader, you lose your bait, that's going to happen. But you're not losing your lead core. This stuff is a little pricey, and if I had to choose between buying a roll of this, buying a roll of this, okay, I'll buy a roll of this. This stuff, kind of adds up, and it's a little bit difficult to find sometimes. All right, so we've talked about what lead core is used for. We've talked a little bit about how to control the depth with lead core. We've talked about some advice as far as when you're trolling. Not stopping, watching your depth, and all that sort of thing. Something I do want to talk about, because this was tricky for me to find when I started using lead core, was figuring out how to do the knots. Okay, and I'm going to give you a free piece of advice here. First thing that you want to do, you get ready to tie a knot with this stuff, is to skin back the outer core and to expose that wire in the middle, and then cut that wire off. And so I've actually already done this piece right here, but you can see when I hold that out, you can see this piece right here still has the wire, and this out here does not. And you can tie a knot in this like super easy. So a couple of things that you can do, two knots that I really like for this, and I don't know that these have a name. Okay, if you know the name of these knots, put it in the description down below. Leave me a comment. But the first way that I like to do this, if I've got a short piece, or I can get to the other end of my leader, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to insert after I've taken the lead wire out, I'm going to insert my mono inside that Dacron or nylon sheathing. So I'm just going to put the mono right back in where the lead just came out of. And bear with me here for a moment. All right, so sometimes this is easier said than done, but so now I've got a little section here where I've got the mono inside that sheathing. Now what I want to do is twist that over, and I'm going to make an overhand knot right inside that thing. So I'm going to put my mono back through my leader material. Now I like to use a long leader, so I might be feeding that through for a while. Like I said, I like to use like an 18 to 20 foot leader. And I'm just going to pull that down right there like that. Make me a little square knot. I don't know if you can see that, if that's in focus. But right there, now that's good. That's a good knot. It looks very simple, works great. Now, what some people do is they'll take the little piece of lead out, and I actually put tie them on a little bit of itty bitty teeny tiny little barrel swivel right here. Now I think that works well, but you have to get them so small that they'll fit through the guides on your rod. And for me, I was having trouble getting the swivel small enough to fit through the guides on my rod, and then also fit through the front of my reel. So I like this knot. It will reel up just fine and handy dandy. Now another knot that you can do, which I think works really well too, and this is great when if you've got like a little bit of mono backing behind your lead core, and you just, you've got however many feet to kind of get your reel started, and then you tie a piece of lead core to it. You can't really get to the back of the line to do a knot like that. So here's an easy alternative. It does make just a little bit bigger of a knot, but I'll show you how easy this is. So you take your lead out, cut you off a piece, skin that back out. So you got a little piece left here. All right, now you go to your mono, and let's just say I've got my piece of mono here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tie an overhand knot in it, like this. Okay, I'm gonna tie another overhand knot right on top of that knot, just to make it a little thicker. And so I've got, and you may not be able to see this, but just imagine here. So you've got an overhand knot on top of another overhand knot. So it's a pretty big bruiser of a knot right there. Okay. All right, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to my lead core, and I'm gonna take this floppy piece, okay, in one hand, and I'm gonna take my piece of mono with my knot in the other hand. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a knot where I go around it, and then up and over, around and back through. Now if that didn't make sense, I'll kind of show you here. So I'm gonna go over and around, okay, so kind of like this. Then I'm gonna go over to the, I guess, to my right, and I'm gonna go over and then back through. And what I've just done here, and I'll hold it up so you can see it, but I've created a knot that kind of looks like, all right, for lack of a better term, kind of looks like a mushroom. Okay, it goes up, okay, over, around, over, and back through. So it's kind of creating like a mushroom shape, or whatever you want to call it there. Okay, so I'll hold that up there so you can see a little better. So what's going to happen? I pull that down tight, and then I'm going to slide it up to my knot. So I'm gonna hold that down tight, and obviously wetting this would be a better choice. Slide that down there, and that's a healthy knot right there. Just trim off your ends and you're good to go. All right, so lead core line, why would you want to use it? So we talked about some instances when you're going to want to use lead core. We've talked how to control your depth, what to do when you run out of depth, speeding up, don't stop. We've talked about some knots that you can use. Many of these products that we're using here, I've got linked in the description down below. If following any of those links would help you out, it certainly helps us out. If you click any of the links down below, we do get a small commission from those things on Amazon. So just a couple things, if you're interested, I'll share a little bit more here with you. What I like to do when I'm using lead core line, again, I like to stick with the 27-pound Sufix. I like to use a 20-pound leader. I like the Okuma reels, which again, I've just got some used ones I got off eBay. Rods that you can use for lead core, I like a medium heavy. So this one that I've been using here lately that I really like is this medium heavy ugly stick. It's the 6'6", one piece ugly stick. That seems to be a good fit for me trolling for stripers, here in our southern lakes. All right, well, as always, brilliant fishing. We appreciate you watching. If you found any of this content entertaining, useful, or helpful, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you in a future video.